Welcome to the Tournament Poker Edge podcast, brought to you by TournamentPokerEdge.com, the only podcast dedicated exclusively to poker tournament strategy. Now here's your host, Clayton Fletcher.
Hello once again, everybody, and welcome to the Tournament Poker Edge podcast. My name is Clayton Fletcher, and I am in gorgeous, serene, extremely quiet New York City, where it's an eerie feeling after the election. Of course, we're not going to ever get into politics, but I will say it's a very strange feeling in New York City today. I missed you guys last week. I only take 1 or at most 2 weeks off a year, and I took last week off, and I'm glad to be bringing you yet another episode of the world's longest running poker strategy podcast. A lot has happened since we last left our hero, including the disqualification of a player named Francesco Garofalo, known by the screen name Forza Italia, a relatively unknown player just with $38,000 in lifetime earnings, according to the Hendon Mob. I don't want to speculate about exactly what happened here, but I will tell you that GG Poker took the rare step of disqualifying this player. He was the winner of the $25,000 online bracelet event number 29, the GG Million Super High Roller Championship, and he's been banned from the site. He's gone off the site, and $1.1 million in prize money is now being redistributed to the other players who finished in the money, granting each one a pay jump. So that's kind of a big deal. This is one of the largest prize redistributions in the history of online poker. There's only been 2 or 3 in history that were over $1 million. So clearly GG Poker, they don't release a statement or anything. They just kind of do this stuff. But you know, you really love to see it, because anytime cheaters get caught and they don't get their bracelets and they don't get their prize money, I think it's good for the game. We are constantly in an ongoing battle between online poker and those who would like to cheat everyone out of the fun and fairness of a real game. So when people get caught, it always makes me happy, puts a smile on my face. All right, let's move on. Last time we spoke, certainly it was a full house. I was in North Carolina. I had 3 guests on the most recent episode, so that seemed like a good one for me to take a break. You know, I've been traveling, doing a lot of gigs in Virginia, North Carolina, and other places, so I just wasn't able to get a podcast episode up last week while I was on the road. But what I was able to do on the road was lead the TPE free roll, which was a lot of fun. I really enjoy everybody getting mad at me because they don't get the password on time and all that stuff. But, you know, joking aside, I am really enjoying my Twitch experience. I've been a lot more active on twitch.tv/Clayton Comic recently. And one thing I've been doing on Twitch, in addition to, of course, playing poker tournaments, I've been demonstrating GTO Wizard and its new play feature, which allows you to challenge either a stranger or someone you know to play you heads up. And this is a beta test they're doing now. They just recently rolled this thing out. They're adding new features and bells and whistles every day. But you can do a tournament style or a cash game style heads up match against anyone for free. And I've been having fun demonstrating all the different features of GTO Wizard on my Twitch stream, which you can access for free, by the way. And when I do that, I take away the delay so that we can all sort of talk in real time. Like maybe we'll do a practice session and I'll say, you know, should we be 4-betting here or folding, or what do you guys think? And everybody can chime in real time on the chat. Normally, when I use Twitch, I like to have a 2 or 3 minute delay at least, just because I like to play cards up and I don't want my opponents to be able to see what I have. But whenever I do the Twitch sessions for practicing, I don't have the delay, so we can talk in real time, and it's just another way for us to interact with each other. So please follow me or subscribe to my Twitch stream, twitch.tv/Clayton Comic. Now, speaking of GTO Wizard, I want to look at the hands that our guests brought last week, and this time I want to run these hands through the solver at GTO Wizard and figure out whether my special guests from the southeastern United States of America had made decisions that would be GTO Wizard approved. So let's start with Mark Levin. He played in something called the Chapel Hill Triangle Poker Tour, $400 buy-in with a $50,000 guarantee. And the blinds were 200, 400, 400. And Mark had 35,000 effective, so almost 100 bigs. And you may remember from 2 weeks ago, the dude on Mark's immediate left, which is the hijack, is what we call upstuck. So he's still doing very well, but not as well as he was before. And Mark had the distinct impression that he was trying to get all those chips he had recently lost back. So with that in mind, we have King 10 in middle position. I put it in as the low jack, and Mark made it 1,000. The tilty guy we're talking about here called, predictably, from the hijack. And in real life, the big blind came along for the ride, but for the purposes of using the solver, let's pretend it's a heads-up situation. So looking at the solver output here, I see that the wizard actually wants to fold King 10 from the low jack about half the time. And I think this has something to do with being so deep. You know, it's a much better hand when you have like 20 or 30 big blinds than when you're in middle position with 90 or 100 big blinds. The bottom line is this hand just isn't very strong. Solver does 2.3, we did 2.5, not going to quibble with that at all. Villain, we now know, called with the 8 of spades, 6 of spades, which is a pure fold. So this tilty, upstuck opponent has already made a mistake before the flop. And now we're going to see the flop with 3,600 in the middle. It comes King of Diamonds, 5 of Diamonds, Tray of Hearts, and Hero with the King of Clubs, 10 of Diamonds, top pair, and a backdoor flush draw. Mark decided to check to the tilty guy, who bet 4,000 into 3,600, so a little bit more than a pot-sized bet, and Mark called. So the solver likes it. King 10 wants to check to the in-position caller 80% of the time, and then versus a pot-sized bet, it's a pure call. So give Mark points for his flop play. Now with 11,600 in the pot, the turn comes the deuce of spades. So King 5, Tray, Deuce with 2 diamonds, and the action's on Mark. He checks again, and the villain bets 20,000 into the 11,600 pot. So just a wild overbet here, and Mark shoved over top of that. Villain called with the 8-6 of spades, and Mark's hand held up. So let's check the solver on this one. We're always going to check the deuce of spades on the turn. But then, when Hero is facing a bet of nearly 200% the pot, the solver just wants to fold 90% of the time. And I remember in discussing this live with the guys when we recorded this podcast a few weeks ago, I wanted to fold and nobody else really did because they were being exploitative and just, kind of taking advantage of the fact that we knew something about our opponent in this situation. It was still too high variance for me, and I was hoping to catch this guy another time, but not really wanting to go to the felt with such a large stack and just King 10. So yeah, the solver is with me folding about 90% of the time, and the remaining 10% of the time is split between just calling and shoving, which is what Mark did in real time. So I remember that there seemed to be some debate over whether we should ever be calling when we're so pot committed at that point. But yeah, the solver actually calls with this hand about 5% of the time, shoves 5%, and it's a 90% fold. Now, I'm not saying that Mark didn't play the hand well, guys. Like when we use GTO Wizard and we're trying to use artificial intelligence and we're doing this type of solver work, we're learning about how to be unexploitable. But in this situation, Mark was making a very conscious decision to deviate from GTO strategy and attempt to exploit his opponent. It worked out for him, and he ended up having a huge stack when all was said and done in this hand. All right, let's go to Brent Lee's hand. So Brent was also kind enough to come out and enjoy the comedy at Lone Rider Brewing Company in Raleigh, North Carolina. And he ran a hand by me that I thought was just a pre-flop spot where we have about 21 big blinds, and our stack was right about half average. Players had just returned from the break of a $400 mid-major type of tournament, and the action folded to the button, who opened to 70K at 15 and 30K. Brent found himself in the small blind with the ace of spades, tray of spades, and my recommendation was, let's just shove. That we would lay about 4.5 times the pot and increase our stack by about 20% if no one calls. So let's see what the solver has to say about my plan here, just attacking pre-flop. And yeah, guys, at this stack depth, all of these suited aces are pure shoves. You've got 20, 21 big blinds. There's a button open. We just stick it right in. There's just too much out there to get after. We don't want to call and see a flop. I remember Brent saying he wanted to encourage the big blind to come along because he was a loose passive calling station type. I just didn't think that it would be very useful to be out of position versus both of these guys with 10% of my stack already in the middle and a suited ace. I think it plays better as a shove, and the solver agrees. GTO Wizard is 100% all in this spot. So the rest of the hand, we can't really run through the solver because we don't have any pre-flop calls with this holding. Okay, guys, I want to move on to a few hands that I played online recently. Before I do, though, I think we can all agree that GTO Wizard is changing the way people study poker, and it's definitely improving my game a lot. I'm learning what the fundamentals are, what the absolute perfect strategy would look like, and then if I choose to deviate from that, I always have a reason for doing so. And if you want to sharpen up your game and your fundamentals and just become an all-around much better tournament poker player, I've got a great deal for you. We've got something called an affiliate link, and if you click that link in the description of this podcast, you can receive 24 hours unlimited access to all of GTO Wizard's features, and then when you're ready to purchase, you can save 10% just by using our affiliate code. It's right there in the description of this podcast. It's gtowizard.com/p/TPE. All right, so I was playing in an $8.80 online tournament with a $15,000 guaranteed prize pool, and it was early on. The blinds were 200, 400 with a 50 ante per player. The average stack was 20,000, and I had 42,000, which was top 10 out of the 300 players that were in the tournament at that point. Registration still open, a long way to go, and all that jazz. The player in third position opened to 880 off of a stack of 13,000, and the action folded to me in the big blind with the ace of spades, 4 of diamonds. So ace 4 off from the big blind facing a raise to 2.2x. I decided to make the call and defend my big blind, and the flop came 9 of clubs, tray of diamonds, deuce of diamonds. 9 tray deuce with 2 diamonds. I have the ace of spades, 4 of diamonds. So I've got a gut shot, an overcard, and a backdoor straight flush draw, I guess, 4 high. Backdoor straight flush draw, I guess that's kind of a stretch. I decided to check, and villain bet 1,500 into the 2,400 pot. So right around 60%, but I don't know. I didn't want to continue in this hand. I decided to fold, and that might be a surprise to some of you. Typically, we don't really fold a lot of gut shots in tournaments. Here are a few reasons why I did. I did not want to pick up a flush draw on the turn with my 4 of diamonds that I would never know whether it was any good. So that was one problem with continuing with the hand. With the ace of diamonds, of course I would continue, because obviously that's just a much stronger draw. Another reason I didn't want to continue is because my opponent did not have enough chips. So by the time I call this 1,500, my opponent will already have put in about 24,000 of his 13,000. For all those times that this hand doesn't go well for me, we need to be able to make up for all those times with a big payoff, what we call implied odds. In this situation, the implied odds are just not there because my opponent's already got 20% of his stack in there. He's only got 10,500 or so behind at this point, and it's just not a good risk proposition. Now, of course, if I hit a 5, I'm going to be very happy because I'm going to have a straight that's almost certainly good. But at the same time, I have no way of knowing whether my opponent can pay off even a single bet more. If you could absolutely guarantee me that I will always get his entire stack every time I get there, then maybe I can call this on the flop. But as it stands, too much can go wrong. I can pick up a flush draw that won't be any good. I can make a pair of aces that isn't any good. Who knows? Too murky, not deep enough. I fold. In the same tournament, sometime later, the blinds were 300, 600 with a 75 ante per player, and the average stack was about 22,000. We had 38,000 in the stack. We were still in the top 10% of all runners in this small stakes online tournament. We had 60 plus big blinds. The action folded to the cutoff with 31,000 in chips, so he's got a nice 50 plus big blind stack himself, and he opened to 1280. The action folded to me in the big blind once again, this time with the king of spades, 10 of spades. So how to play king 10 facing a raise from the cutoff, I think we can pretty much call 100% of the time. Although if you want to occasionally put a hand like this into your 3-bet bluffing range, I guess you can. It's a little too strong for me to want to bluff with it, and not quite strong enough for me to want to value 3-bet with it. So it feels like this should be just a pure call. So that's what I did. I called. And now with 3420 in the middle, the flop comes jack of spades, king of clubs, deuce of diamonds, jack, jack, deuce, rainbow, hero with the king 10 of spades for the 3 to a royal. Always fun to see that. So I decided to check it right over to the cutoff, and he checked behind. I found that strange. I mean, this is such a great flop for a C-bet. I imagine the solver is C-betting this flop every time in position. You're the pre-flop raiser. It's such a hard board for the big blind, me, to have hit, that why not just bet, maybe even just bet 1 or 1.2 big blinds and typically take it down quite often. So I thought that was odd, but I was glad that he did it, especially when the turn came the 6 of spades, giving me a flush draw. The action on Clayton, I decided to donk lead the turn. You know, it looks like maybe I have something, and now I'm betting on the turn because I just don't want to risk having it check through once more. So I bet 25.65 into the 34.20 pot. So pretty chunky sizing there, about 5/7 of the pot. And villain calls. So now with 85.50 in the middle, the river comes the king of clubs. So our final board is jack of spades, jack of clubs, deuce of diamonds, six of spades, king of clubs. So I finally make a pair here on the river. So what should we do? We've got a pair of kings with a 10 kicker. Of course, we have two jacks on the board to worry about. I don't know. I feel like this one's a close decision. I decided in real time to check it over, hoping that maybe I was up against a busted flush draw, or that maybe my opponent had somehow floated me on the turn, something like that. I also didn't want to get raised, but that's not a good reason not to bet, especially in a small stakes online tournament. You're better off betting and then just dealing with the rare bluff raise than you are losing all that value from never betting for fear of being raised. So, I don't know. This one's pretty close. I decided to check, and villain checked behind, and I turned over my hand, and it was good against the 6 of hearts, 4 of hearts. So on the turn, my opponent caught a pair of 6s and called a very large turn bet with it. So I made a note after that hand not to be bluffing against this guy ever again. And that'll do it for this episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please take a moment and just give us a nice review. 5 stars, It really helps us out a lot in terms of attracting more listeners to this podcast. We're really trying to grow it. We've got big goals and big dreams for the Tournament Poker Edge podcast, and you guys can help us out for free just by giving us a good rating, a nice review, wherever you happen to be downloading and listening to your podcasts. And for everyone here at Tournament Poker Edge, I'm Clayton Fletcher. Thank you so much for listening.
I wanna hold them like they do in Texas, please. Fold them, let them hit me, raise it, baby, stay with me. Lock in intuition, play the cards with babes to start. And after she's been hooked, I'll play the one that's on her heart. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. I'll get her heart, show her what I got. Oh, whoa, whoa, whoa. I'll get her heart, show her what I got. Can't read mine, no she can't read a mile. Poker face, she's got to love nobody. Can't read mine, no she can't read a mile. Poker face, she's got to love nobody. Poker face, poker face. Poker face, poker face. I wanna roll with her, a hard pair we will be. While little gambling is fun when you're with me. I love it. Russian roulette is not the same without a gun. And baby, when it's love, it's not rough, it isn't fun. Oh, whoa.